This is the dual cab ute they said would never work. It's the LDV eT60 and it is Australia's first electric dual cab ute. Yep, that's right, LDV, Chinese brand, has beaten the likes of Tesla and Rivian and brought a fully electric pickup truck to our shores. And that's why I'm standing out here in the bloody freezing cold and dripping rain, because I want to tell you as much as I can about this ute. Question is it any good? And importantly, how much does it cost? Unfortunately, I've got some pretty nasty news on that front to tell you. And can an electric ute still tow things? And is it still good enough for lugging things away from a work site? I'm going to do my best to answer all of those questions and more in this video. It's a bit of a smash and grab event this, so I mightn't get to everything. But if there's something you want to know that I don't cover in the video, jump in the comments and ask away. I'll be sure to answer them all. So let's get into it. It's a bit of a big deal, this. All right, let's start with the thing you really want to know. How much does an electric dual cab ute cost? It's expensive, unfortunately. There's no sugarcoating this, so I'm just going to blurt it out. $92,990 or thereabouts. I only just saw the number myself, but near enough makes no difference. $93,000. That's a lot of money. That's roughly twice the cost of a conventionally ICE-powered version of the T60 Max. So you're really going to want to have a lot of conviction to going fully electric, at the moment at least, to go into the eT60. So what does all that money get you exactly? Well, you get an 88.5 kilowatt hour battery pack in between the two axles, range of around 330 kilometers. In terms of outputs, we've got 130 kilowatts, 310 newton meters. Now, I hope all of those are accurate. I've only just seen the spec sheet myself, so sorry if I've gone a little askew on those. You get 17-inch wheels as well, and inside, I've only had a quick look, but there's a couple of key differences. Gear selector is different. In terms of equipment and stuff, I'll do some voiceover now so you know exactly what you get with this car, but yeah, she's on the pricey side, guys.
So it turns out my memory is actually better than I thought, because all of those numbers I just mentioned are indeed correct. The eT60 is based on a regular T60 Max Pro, which retails for $43,148 when it's paired with an automatic gearbox. So that means this electric version is actually more than twice as expensive as its diesel equivalent. The Pro trim level is the entry point to the regular T60 model range, and it also has more of a workhorse focus, and features heavier duty and firmer suspension, and also a higher payload. Going electric though has brought some key differences. Unlike the 4x4 T60s, this electric version is two-wheel drive only. A single electric motor is mounted onto the rear axle, which means this isn't the T60 to buy if you plan on doing some serious off-roading. The electric motor and the control unit also look pretty vulnerable to damage under there if you were to take the eT60 off-road. Another key difference is how much the eT60 can tow. A regular T60 has a braked towing capacity of 3,000 kilograms, but that drops down to 1,000 kilograms for this electric version. The payload though is actually higher than the regular ute, and it's also rated at 1,000 kilograms. As for recharging, LDV says the eT60 can accept up to 80 kilowatt DC fast charging, and it can go from 20 to 80% in 45 minutes. At home, on an 11 kilowatt hour wall box, it'll take you about 9 hours to achieve a full charge.
Okay, inside the eT60, we're going to go on a bit of a journey of discovery together here, because this is literally the first time I've sat in this vehicle. We haven't even had the product preso yet, so bit of a journey of discovery, but first impressions are, doesn't feel that different to a regular T60 Max. So the specification, as I understand it, is based on a T60 Max Pro. So we don't have all of the luxuries of a T60 Max Lux, which gets a few more niceties like a leather trim wheel and that kind of stuff. One key difference I've noticed straight off the bat is the normal gear selector is gone, and it's now been replaced by sort of a hockey puck twister system, which is sort of an interesting difference. Another thing I've noticed as well is that there's a key slot here. So where is the key? I think it's somewhere around here. I'll find it later, but I think you still turn the key on, turn the car on, even though it's electric, with a conventional key. So that's something a little bit unusual. All of the basics that make the T60 cabin pretty convincing are still here. So we've got decent front seats. The driving position is okay. Still no reach adjustment on the steering wheel though, unfortunately, but it does have one of the biggest back seats in the business. So if you're going to be using the back seat regularly for passengers, this is a car to consider for sure. I'll put up a list of all the standard equipment inclusions and do some voiceover now so you know exactly what you get in the eT60 cabin.
Equipment-wise, the eT60 scores electric front seats trimmed in fake leather, a large 10.25-inch central touchscreen with wired Apple CarPlay, rain-sensing wipers, a 4-speaker sound system, and a plastic multi-function steering wheel. On the safety front, there are 6 airbags, rear parking sensors, and a reversing camera. But like the rest of the T60 range, key active safety systems are missing. There's no autonomous emergency braking, rear cross traffic alert, lane keeping tech, or adaptive cruise. It's also unclear if the eT60 will be covered by the same 5-star ANCAP rating as the regular T60 range, which achieved that rating back in 2017. As for the warranty, unlike the rest of the T60 range, which now has a 7-year, 200,000 kilometre warranty, the eT60 is covered for 5 years and 130,000 kilometres.
So, earlier I mentioned you need the key to start the eT60, which you do. Put it in the barrel, switch it on, car comes on, ute comes on I should say, put it in drive, and away we go. So our journey of discovery continues. These are the first meters that I have moved in Australia's first electric ute. So this is really going to be first impression kind of stuff. First impression about the acceleration. Look, I would call it sprightly rather than spirited. We've got a little bit of a jiggly ride already, but okay, let's talk about the acceleration. 130 kilowatts, 310 Newton meters, and the good news is we get instant response. So the ICE-powered version of the T60 has the most powerful engine in its class, 160 kilowatts from a 4-cylinder bi-turbo engine, but it's quite a peaky unit, so you actually have to get it above 2,500 RPM to get the best from that engine. That means it can feel a little bit sluggish, a little bit languid away from intersections and when you start to get moving. This car's the opposite, so now we have instant sort of shove right from the get-go. That's the beauty of an electric motor. Does it feel quick? No, like I said before, it's probably swift rather than fast. But in terms of the level of performance you get from most dual cabs, yeah, I would say it feels pretty sprightly. Not quite the level of a V6 Ranger, which is actually, even the bi-turbo Ranger, they're very quick cars now, so that's full throttle, yeah. It's no firecracker, let's put it that way, but you do get the benefits of the instant response from an electric powertrain, and of course, the tranquility of not having a clattery diesel up front, because the diesel in the regular T60, despite all of its performance, is a little bit noisy and gruff, especially when you start to rev it out. Other first impressions. I mentioned the ride before, and I'm certainly picking up quite a lot of jiggliness and interruptions to the cabin from the tyres and the suspension that you don't get in a regular T60. We're just cruising around at low speed in town now, and it's certainly not what I would call plush or settled. It's pretty reactive, the ride here. So let's do a few more Ks and we'll come back to the ride handling compromise to see what it's like. In terms of steering, no major complaints there. It's nice and quick off center, it's as good. Doesn't have sort of the vague spot that the regular T60 does have off center. It's kind of light, weights up progressively. We'll throw it a few corners in a minute, but so far the steering seems to be okay. In terms of pricing as well, have a little bit more context to add to that one for you. So I had a chat to the MD of LDV in Australia, and he sort of said that they're relatively happy with where the price has landed. Of course, they're not thrilled. They would prefer for it to be cheaper, but where it starts to make sense is when you consider who and how people are going to buy this electric ute. So the majority of buyers will be fleets. LDV fully accepts that. They also accept that their new range of electric vehicles has certainly elevated them to another plane when it comes to price. They're not going away from value in their ICE-powered cars, but they do understand that they can't price these electric cars in the same sort of realm as where they have been positioning themselves previously. But where the 93 grand starts to make a bit more sense is for ABN holders, they get sort of a few $1,000s off that, I think 5 or 6 grand off that. Plus, fleets are going to be buying them to reduce their carbon emissions. And LDV has made no secret of the fact that they're targeting governments and councils who are really conscious of reducing their carbon footprint. In terms of private buyers, I don't think you're going to get many people that bowl up, hand over $93,000, walk out and go, wow, just bought myself an electric ute. Again, LDV kind of says that they're exploring different ways to buy this car. There are a couple of third-party companies that have approached them with some interesting proposals around lease deals, whether you buy the car but they own the battery so you can replace the battery in a few years, that kind of thing. So they'll be on more sort of monthly repayment kind of deals, which is where this ute, I guess, starts to make a bit more sense if you can sort of use it as a tax write-off and you're only paying sort of monthly repayments rather than one big lump sum. The 93 grand starts to feel a little less scary. Not less scary is my assessment of the ride so far. It is certainly not what you would call comfortable at this stage. It's pretty stiff-legged. We've only got 12 minutes in the eT60. Like I said earlier at the beginning of this video, it's a bit of a smash and grab affair, this launch. So we'll have to wait for a full assessment. But first impressions of the ride, sort of got a big question mark around that one. General sense of quality in here as well. The steering wheel is plastic. We've got quite a lot of hard surfaces as well. It doesn't feel, to me, initially at least, like a $93,000 dual cab ute, that's for sure. It does feel like more of a 45 grand dual cab, which is exactly what it is really, because this car is based on, this ute, sorry, is based on the LDV T60 Pro. So you get the same equipment, the same sort of interior finish and fit out. You do get the benefit of one of the biggest back seats in the class as well, but does it feel like a blingy premium dual cab ute that's going to cost you almost 100 grand on the road? Not initially, at least. Let's do a quick experiment. I'm going to get my passenger to do a quick 0 to 100, so let's pull up safely here. This isn't going to be scientific by any means, but when I say go, can you hit go?
You betcha.
3, 2, 1, go. It's definitely leisurely. We're now building up to 100% power. 70, 80, 90, 100. How many seconds?
16 and
Okay, 16 seconds to 100 k's an hour. That's kind of a ballpark figure, certainly not scientific by any stretch, but that gives you an indication of the level of performance we have on tap here. This is rear-wheel drive only, of course. There's an electric motor on the rear axle, so no 4x4 capability at all. The 4x4 switch you get in a normal T60 is blanked out here. There might be a dual motor version in the second generation of this eT60, which is due in 2 or 3 years' time, but for now, company execs are sort of saying that this is going to be just a single motor version that powers the rear axle. Okay, let's talk regen braking. Does it have it? We think so. I asked an LDV tech earlier, does it have regen braking? And he said, yep. And I said, okay, does it have multiple stages like the other LDVs that we're testing today do? They've got 3 stages for the regen in the MIFA and the eDelivery 9 electric van. This ute doesn't have multiple settings at this point. This is a pre-production car, we should point out. But at this stage, it doesn't have multiple stages for regen. So if I take my foot off the throttle now, yeah, if there's any kind of regen effect, it is very, very mild. Certainly nothing approaching one pedal driving or anything like that. Oh, gee whiz, this ride is... We're just on a regular Aussie back road now, and it is very, very stiff-legged, very firm. I wonder if you can see me sort of getting moved around in the seat, or you can hear it in my voice, but yeah, definitely some problems to iron out with how the eT60 rides, that's for sure. Whether that's to do with it being a pre-production car, we will have to wait and see, but at this point, certainly not perfect when it comes to ride and handling. It's not going to set the world on fire for performance either. That's flat to the floor now. At least the steering's good though. I kind of hope I don't change my mind about that when I have a bit more time in it, but at the moment at least it's accurate. It's not what I would call in the same realm as something like a Ford Ranger, Mazda BT50, Isuzu D-Max for interior comfort and ride and handling, that's for sure. And the EV powertrain probably doesn't have the punch or add a sense of polish and premiumness to the driving experience that I was expecting either. Need to spend some more time in this to give you a proper verdict, but initial impressions are we still have a few question marks.
So the eT60 certainly isn't perfect. LDV should be commended for being the first to offer a fully electric dual cab in Australia, especially considering that hybrid tech is actually yet to reach the segment. LDV really has jumped into the deep end and beaten its competitors to market. And as a solution for governments or for private companies looking to reduce their carbon footprint, you can see the appeal. For private buyers though, the high price, reduced towing capacity, low levels of standard equipment and safety systems, and the mediocre performance and ride and handling mean that for now, Australia's first electric ute is going to be a tough sell.